Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre delivered a pointed speech in Toronto today, laying out his vision for a stronger, sovereign Canada in the face of growing trade pressures.
Canada's prosperity and security are inseparable from a stable relationship with the United States. And that is why we should not declare a permanent rupture with our biggest customer and closest neighbor in favor of a strategic partnership for a new world order with Beijing.
Pierre Poilievre said China is not a substitute for the U.S. and wants to keep Chinese vehicles out of Canada in exchange for a free trade order pact with the U.S. to let Canadian vehicles in. He also said he wants to establish a strategic energy and critical mineral reserve in Canada and wants to create an all-party working group to help the government renegotiate the Canada-U.S. free trade agreement. With me now is David McLaughlin, former Chief of Staff to Brian Mulroney. David, good evening and thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
How are you processing Pierre Poilievre's speech today? It has been welcomed from all quarters with mostly a positive response.
Well, I think it deserves a positive response. It was a pretty good speech, a strong speech, serious speech, and one that I think he needed to make, both for political purposes, but also in the run-up to another election to show that he is more than just a leader of the opposition, that he can be prime minister, and he is leading a government in waiting. So I think he did a lot of that. Did himself a lot of good today with that speech.
Okay, what do you make of his suggestions or his policies like we heard today on how we should be trading with the United States and how we can leverage what we have here in Canada in this trade war?
Well, what you're really seeing, Akshay, is the new fault line in Canadian politics. It is really about which side of the border you are on with the United States. Mr. Carney has pretty clearly said, look, we've got to get away from this singular relationship with the United States. We can't trust them anymore, and he's talked about it in terms of a rupture. Very strong word, but very clear message and very evocative. Mr. Poilievre is taking the opposite tack, and he's saying, look, we don't need a rupture with our biggest trading partner. That's too much. We have to find a way to make it work. And so, in political terms, it is actually kind of as I say, it's the new fault line. It's the new divide. What Mr. Poilievre is doing is also reflecting a very historic perspective in the Conservative Party. From my old boss, Brian Mulroney, of course, Conservatives have traditionally been more sensitive and more sympathetic, more open to the relationship with the United States than traditionally the Liberal Party. But Mr. Poilievre is trying to do, I think, two things here, Akshay. One, he's trying to show a clear divide between himself and Mr. Carney on America without making himself, putting himself in the box of being pro-Trump or anti-Trump, which has been a problem for Poilievre. He's trying to make it more of a foreign policy, a visionary approach to where Canada stands in the world. His particular measures and what he wants to do to try to, improve that relationship, they kind of, in a certain way, fall within the Carney bucket. They're not radically different, but we have to see whether or not Trump and the administration responds.
Yeah, I also want to know from you the assessment in terms of, you said, of course, this is politically important for Pierre Poilievre to make this speech at this time. In the wake of this speech, where do you think this will land, really? Because we're still seeing like a wide margin, as we know, between the Liberals and Conservatives and Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre himself. What do you think will be the impact of what Pierre Poilievre has said today?
I don't think it'll be anything immediate. Look, emotion is still the most, potent force in politics, and the emotional sense that Canadians have in terms of the Trump administration, that Carney has really captured that, and he will hold that as long as Canadians hold this view of Trump in the U.S. Mr. Poilievre's approach was more, coldly logical, more coldly reasoned, and that takes a while to kind of seep through. But I think what in the longer term, if Mr. Poilievre is going to become competitive again with Mr. Carney on leadership, That is the core thing that is holding him back. He needed a speech like this to show, look, I do have a view, a vision of where Canada fits, and you can start to see me as Prime Minister. And guess what? There is also a difference between my approach and my opponent. So it's incremental, I think, Akshay, but not unimportant. And I think he did a pretty good step for himself today.
Okay, thank you for your time. Great chatting. That's David McLaughlin, is the former Chief of Staff to Brian Mulroney. Always a pleasure, David. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And for more on this story, you can go to ctvnews.ca and the CTV News app.